If you want to, students, I'm going to be showing you how we can do a composite of cutting out a subject and putting on a different background. So first thing I'm going to do is open up this photo of a subject photo. Again, you could do global adjustments in Camera Raw if you need to. Otherwise, you can open it straight into Photoshop. So this will be the subject. One sec, I just need to change my mode from 16-bit to 8-bit because it's a higher resolution than you guys use. This is a background photo I got from unsplash.com. So obviously I would love for you guys to use your backgrounds and subject photos. But if you need to get a different photo for a different background, you can go to unsplash.com. It is free to create an account. I used Facebook to sign up, so it's unsplash.com. And then you can search for photos that are royalty free to use for editing projects like this. So that's when I search water texture. You will see some paid iStock photos at the top. If you scroll down, the ones for Unsplash are free. And then the one I used was this one. And you can just click download and it'll save it to your computer. So I'm just going to open that background photo into Photoshop. So you should have two different tabs, your subject photo and your background photo on the top of the Photoshop. So you should have two separate tabs, much like Windows, for a web browser. What I'm going to use is the Move tool, and what I'm going to do is actually move the subject photo onto my background photo. And so all I'm going to do is click on the top tab, hold the click, so click and drag, and then let go, and it should detach it and snap it off from the top tab. So again, if you want to attach it, drag it back and it'll highlight blue. Otherwise, click and hold, drag and let go, and it'll snap off the top part. Next, I need to click inside the photo, click and drag and drop it onto your subject photo. So again, I'll show that one more time. Using the Move tool, I'm going to click inside the photo, hold the click, drag and let go onto your background photo, and it'll place it onto that photo. I'm just going to close this photo so I don't have any issues. As you can tell, the subject photo is much bigger than the background photo, so I will need to resize that. So if you have an issue like that, or if it says there's a color profile issue, just hit OK, and then for sizing a photo down, you just want to go to Edit and Free Transform. So I'm going to zoom out, pressing Command minus. And so with Free Transform, you can click on one of these edges, and it will size it down and keep the ratio the same. So I'm just going to size it to where it's the size of the background photo. And then once you're done, hit the check or double click, and it'll commit the Free Transform. So just using the Free Transform to size it down. Again, just go to Edit, Free Transform. Command T is the shortcut. So once you have your subject layer on top of your background layer, what we want to do is we want to be able to cut out her shape. So I'm going to show you a couple ways. The first way is probably the most traditional way using Photoshop Composite, and that is to use a layer mask. So where are my layers? Make sure you're selected on your subject layer, and then click on this little rectangle with a black circle in it, and it'll say add layer mask. So just click on that and I'll add a layer mask to the side of your layer. And so what we want to do, let's call this our subject layer so we can stay organized. So make sure you have the layer mask highlighted. And then I'm going to go to my brush tool. So I'm going to click on the brush tool here. And so how a layer mask works is whatever's white will show that part of the layer, whatever's black won't show. So if I have my layer mask selected and I switch this to black, and again make sure it's set to black at the top and make sure white is set to white, those are the two you want to use. And so with my brush selected, you can click on this arrow and adjust your brush so you can make it bigger or smaller. You can also press the brackets next to the letter P to make it bigger or smaller too. And then you can also change the hardness of the edge. So actually we'll make a harder edge. So wherever I paint with black will basically won't show that part of the layer. So I'm just going to do a big rough cut real quick. And again, this is just for speed. I would spend a lot more time doing this correctly. As you can tell with the photo here, it does go out of focus, so it will be a softer edge, and then the top part has a harder edge. So you do want to adjust your brush. And so what I'm going to do is just zoom in, press Control plus. And so you always want to match your edge to the hardness of the edge here. So we've got the hair, so I'm just going to go paint around the hair. If you click and hold down the Shift key and do another click, it will go in a straight line from that point. So if I kind of hold down Shift, I can kind of keep cutting around her shape here. It works really well too if you have like kind of straight line edges like on a product or something. And then I could let go of Shift and just kind of do it by hand. Because it's on a brush layer, I can also, reduce the flow of the brush and kind of slowly paint things off and like fade it off if needed. But otherwise, you can stick to 100%. So right now it's getting kind of softer edge, so I'm going to soften up my hardness on the edge. I'm actually going to make my brush a little smaller. And so I'm just trying to always match the edge hardness, depending on what my subject is. So obviously I would spend more time doing this, but I'm just kind of showing you real quick. And again, if you click and hold down Shift, it will go in a straight line. If you need kind of help seeing where you've painted, like you can press the backslash button. So right next to the brackets underneath the delete key, there's that backslash. And it'll kind of highlight in red where you've painted. Let's switch that back to black. And then that's kind of nice to see. For example, if you do paint off something, you can switch this back to white and then paint it back with white, which is useful. That's why we want to work on this method without using the eraser tool. Eraser tool, it'll permanently take it away. But with the layer mask, you can paint it off with black, and you can paint stuff back with white. And so that's the very useful part of it. So obviously, I'd still kind of go around cleaning up. And for the fine hair, I'd probably reduce the flow, make it super soft, and then get like a soft brush. And then I can kind of lightly take away some parts. I don't have to do a full 100%, but just kind of lightly, take off some of those edges here. So this is kind of the more traditional way of compositing in Photoshop. So I would spend more time adjusting that and cutting her out more precisely. But for speed, I want to make sure you guys see everything quickly. So a couple things we can do is we can go over a selection method. So I'm just going to delete this mask. So if I was doing this right now, what you could do is just File, Save As, and save this as a Photoshop format. So make sure it says Photoshop format. I'm just going to call this like Composite1. Make sure you save it in the right folder, and then hit Save and OK. And when you save it as a Photoshop format, it'll keep these layers. So if I go back, there's my Composite1 PSD, and then I can keep working on it and keep playing with the layer mask here. So the other method I'm going to show you, so I'm just going to trash this. I'm just going to throw the layer mask in the trash and then delete it. So what we can do is a selection method, which is a bit more advanced. So I'm just going to go to the quick selection tool here. And a new feature on Photoshop is the select subject option. When you click it, it'll do its best guess to kind of figure out what your subject is in Photoshop. You can add to the selection or subtract from the selection using these plus or minuses. So I'm just going to grab, oops, sorry, I set this to plus. Grab a couple of these spots I missed. And so then, if it looks good, what you can do, let's get the hair here, is just add the layer mask. And when you add it, when it's selected, what it's going to do is it's going to leave the inside of the selection white and then make the outside of it black. So you can see here, it basically filled in with black, my selection. So again, it did leave some kind of weird edges here. So again, I can go back to my brush and I can still, keep painting onto the background with my brush and adjust it with my paintbrush, right? So again, you can obviously always adjust the selection further, but it did a pretty good job. There's a couple points I might kind of clean up these edges, but it did a pretty good job. Some of this I'd paint back using a white brush, just to kind of make it look nice. There you go. So that's kind of the other method, is you could do a selection and then add a layer mask to it. Either way, you can adjust your mask further using a paintbrush. So then what we want to do, if you want to adjust a layer, you can click on a layer. So make sure you click on the photo, not on the layer mask, but actually on the photo, and go to Image Adjustments. So let's say I needed to adjust the brightness. I could go to my levels, and the far right, upper right tool will adjust the highlights. This will adjust your midtones, and this will adjust your shadows. This will lighten up your shadows, and this will darken your highlights. And so I'm just going to adjust it so it looks like a nice kind of contrast here. I could also go to Image Adjustments and do a color balance to kind of match the background more. So let's actually go into our shadows. I'm going to add a little bit of cyan here, a little bit of blue just to kind of match the blue of the background. And again, if I wanted to adjust the background layer, just click on your background layer, make sure it's on the photo, and then you can do different adjustments. So there's, your exposure adjustments, your color adjustments. Maybe I want to give the background more saturation. I could, increase the saturation, right, of that, and then hit OK. So, I can always adjust and modify each of the layers. Just make sure you're on the right layer. And again, if you want to keep masking your subject out, make sure you click on the mask, and then make sure you got the brush set up the way you want. Maybe I want to take off some of this hair here, this kind of weird edge here. There we go. And so again, you can keep modifying it. So then what we need to do is always go File, Save As. Again, I'm just going to call this Composite2. Make sure the format is a Photoshop format. Hit Save and OK. And that'll save your layers. So again, if I go back to Bridge, there's my Composite2 photo. Just open that up. So I can keep clicking on the layer mask. I can keep working on the layer mask. I can do adjustments to my photo, right? And I can keep modifying it. Once I am finished, so always make sure to save your PSD because I want to see your layers. I want to be able to click on how you composited your photo. Then what we need to do is go to Layer and Flatten Image. So Layer, Flatten Image, it'll flatten our layers together. And then I'm just going to go File, Save As. I'm just going to change the format now to a JPEG. Because the layers are flattened, you can save it now as a JPEG. And that's what you need to save it as if you want to upload it to Google Classroom, is that it needs to be in the JPEG format. So when you show me your work, what I want to see is a PSD format with your layers so I can see how you cut out your subject. And then I want to see that you have it saved as a JPEG. And you can actually upload the finished JPEG composite into your Google slide. Alright, sorry for the bell, but thanks for watching.